After beating Ivy again, Alir lets her live and she tells us that the Fell Dragon plans to regain his powers via the consumption of sovereign blood, which is why King Morian was dragged away to our next destination, Destinia Cathedral. The party gets lost and we encounter Vale, who glosses over the fact she doesn't know how she got there either. We ask for directions and Vale points out where to go, then enters an unusual trance after noticing the emblem ring on Alir, and runs off. Before we head over to Destinia Cathedral, we prepare by leveling up Chloe in the arena, feeding Sommy, doing push-ups, eating my 3rd D rank meal in a row, refining my Woe Dao to +5, and moving the Holy Emblem over. I also use up what stat boosters I currently have: Chloe with an energy drop, Clan with the Spirit Dust, Alir with the Secret Book, and Louis with the Talisman. And you know what's next, support conversations. Alir, who clearly sounds like he's in pain, requests Alfred to stop taking the time to make him breakfast every single morning, as well as playing the flute to put him to sleep, as it is getting to the point where it haunts Alir's dreams. Despite Alir's reasonable requests, Alfred takes it rather poorly and jogs off. Running from a corrupted, Alir screams at Diamant for help, and then thanks him for dispatching the enemy. Curious, Diamant inquires at what could cause such a situation, and Alir shares his weakness to corrupted outside of combat. Alfred and Diamant go sparring, and Diamant describes their moment as nice. Alfred encourages Diamant to expound upon the descriptions, and that positivity slowly infects him. Once their journey comes to an end, they're both sure that they'll be amazing friends to each other, as long as neither of them permanently die, of course. This time it's Chloe's turn to help Jean with his herb picking. Jean points out that the forest gets dark in some areas, and Chloe tries to scare him with the spookiness. Jean isn't fazed by the ethereal, as his fears of illness and injury are much greater, which pushes him to ensure everyone is taken care of. Etienne confronts Unica and shakes her down, apparently because she stole something. Unica is rightfully displeased with this treatment, especially after Etienne clarifies that no one is in trouble, so she storms off. Alcrus continues his self-deprecation and Diamant tries to get him to focus on his strengths. This loop goes on for a while until they start training. Finally, we travel to Destinia Cathedral and Marth gives us a warning to stock up on supplies, which is advice I do take, buying some vulneraries, tonics, etc., since we're warned by the game itself that we'll be going through a few consecutive chapters in a row. Entering chapter 10, Hortensia is getting worried about her sister's fate, and Rosado reassures her. She reveals her daddy issues and was hoping that her father would give her some praise if she could get some of the emblem rings, even though she's in the dark about why her father is doing all of this. Of course, she failed, but at least she takes accountability for what happens at the Grand Crossing. Goldmary reports in to give Hortensia another emblem ring that came with the command from Hyacinth to prepare for battle. Our party arrives at the entrance to Destinia Cathedral. Marth senses the Fell Dragon and advises us to flee. Alir disregards him, thinking we'd be evenly matched with our opponents, and hopes that Marth will always stay by our side. In the cathedral, we are welcomed by King Hyacinth. He assumes we've left Ivy to rot, which Hortensia doesn't take kindly to, and Alir doesn't even bother to correct them. Alfred points out the still standing King Morian on the side, who has been turned into a corrupted, with the ritual already being completed, angering the Brodian princes. The ever-calm Marth advises us to retreat once again. However, the rest of the group is high on their emotions, and Hyacinth gives us no choice in the matter, as the cathedral gates become sealed, leading us into the hardest map of the game so far. This map comes in 2 parts, split by a giant door, and we'll be facing not 1, not 2, but 3 bosses. The first segment involves Hortensia and a battalion of soldiers, with her retainers taking a staircase each. Hortensia now has the Ring of the Instructor, who comes with the Lewin Lance, which is effective against dragons. She also has the Freeze Staff that can prevent a unit from moving for 1 turn, and on her movement preview, it seems as though she'll stay where she is. There are also 2 treasure chests, and a magic artillery which functions similarly to the ballista in Chapter 8, right in the centre. As for the second half, we'll leave that for when it's relevant. Because of the lack of flyers on one side, Citrine takes Etier's place, and I buy the Thunder Tome for her. Everyone is put into position, and I enter the Path of Pain, where we're required to defeat both Hyacinth and Corrupted Morian. Before I even make a move, I take the time to appreciate the music for this map. Right, turn 1. Chloe immediately dispatches the mage on the artillery and retreats before she can be sniped. Louis, Diamant, who I have Emblem engaged, and Citrine proceed to the right staircase, while everyone else stay away from the attack range of Rosado's troops, except for Alir. Louis takes the brunt of the right side's assault, while Alir gracefully baits out and crits one of the Pegasus Knights. The remaining units advance towards our troops, except for the units around Hortensia, and we begin turn 2. Alcrest shoots down the last Pegasus Knight on Rosado's side, while Clan drowns the Armor Knight. Chloe and Alfred Emblem engage and use their respective engage attacks to eliminate Rosado and take his killer axe. Alir moves over to the pillar tile to bait the cavalry on the left, then Jean heals Chloe, and Unica uses a strength tonic. On the right side, Diamant unleashes Blazing Lion on Gold Mary's troops. Citrine uses Thunder on the Armor Knight, then Louis retreats from the flames and makes a javelin shot. Diamant gets broken by the Armor Knight, and deftly dodges the archer. One of the swordsmen bravely attack Louis, only to meet their own end. The remaining Gold Mary units escape the flames, and then Alir is broken. Finally, an enemy thief swipes a Draco shield from the right chest. Turn 3. Jean heals Alir while Unica moves to the open pillar tile to poison the cavalry, and Clan finishes them off. Alcrest makes a longbow shot at the mage on the stairs, allowing Alir to deal the last hit safely. Alfred joins Alir on the stairs while Chloe starts chipping away at the thief's life. Back on the right, Diamant's backup hit slays the Armor Knight for Citrine, which levels her up to level 11. Diamant takes the archer down, and Louis defeats the last of Gold Mary's soldiers. Gold Mary herself insists that Louis die, and indeed that happens with a very unfortunate crit, marking the first death of many for this chapter. So I travel back to the point before Diamant acted and have him and Louis swap who takes down who, hoping that would be enough to alter fate. Alas, it was not, and Louis meets his end on this timeline too. Now I return a step further to have the entire right team retreat, and have Diamant use a vulnerary. The archer shoots at Diamant, while Louis takes out the Armor Knight. Gold Mary can't get to Louis anymore, and the thief opens the remaining treasure chest containing the Hellfire Tome. Turn 4 begins, and Louis engages immediately to destroy Gold Mary before she has a chance to crit again, and we pick up her energy drop. Diamant slashes away at the archer, Citrine attacks the lone swordsman, and Chloe joins the right team to open their path. On the left, Alcrest makes another longbow shot, this time on the thief, which Clan takes out with Thunder, getting all of their loot, with Clan keeping the Hellfire Tome. The rest of the left team advance, however, Alir pulls out the newly attained steel dagger from the convoy so he can trade it over to Unica. Then Alir chugs down a defense tonic, and the turn ends once Jean engages and uses Great Sacrifice. Despite Chloe being in range of one of Hortensia's troops, they all refuse to budge from their position, and we immediately enter turn 5. It takes me a while to figure out how to approach Hortensia's forces, especially on the left side, as the Armor Knight there has an anti-cavalry weapon that could easily take out Alfred. The right side at least was simple, since they can move up without much worry, while Chloe avoids the archer's range. For the left, however, Alcrest and Unica take out the nearest Pegasus Knight. Alir engages and Warp Ragnarok's the Armor Knight, leveling up to level 11. To reduce the number of attacks on Unica, Jean obstructs a few of the tiles around her, and I find out that Emblem NG tiles can't be directly walled off. Alfred moves to a tile above the pillars in hopes that he can take the archer attack instead of Unica, and the turn ends once I have Clan begin catching up with everyone else. Hortensia starts the enemy phase by freezing Unica in place, who is then followed up by an Armor Knight. The other Armor Knight decides to chase the left team too, and the archer thankfully attacks Alfred, and the remaining enemy unit goes after Chloe. Enemy archer reinforcements come out from the west and east, then turn 6 begins. At this point, this situation still feels manageable, until I notice that Hortensia can now move. Starting us off, Louis eliminates the archer reinforcement on the right side. Chloe and Diamant team up to take down the Pegasus Knight, and Citrine stays the heck away from Hortensia's attack range. Alir dispatches the archer reinforcement on their side. I have Jean move to Alir to access the convoy, and swap out the heal staff for restore, and use that stave to unfreeze Unica. Unica stands next to Jean so the Armor Knights can't get to him, and she uses a vulnerary. Alchrist and Alfred get away from Hortensia as well, then Clan's move ends the turn once again, making Hortensia rush to the right and bring about Chloe's demise. So we go back to after Louis took down an archer. The left team's moves remain the same as the previous timeline, and the right team almost does the same, but the difference is where Chloe attacks and retreats. This time Hortensia breaks Diamant, Yunaka protects Jean from the Armor Knight, and Alfred is attacked by the same archer again. Turn 7, Clan finally returns to the action and melts the full HP Armor Knight with his shiny new Elfire Tome, while Alir eliminates the remaining one, and Alfred takes the archer. Jean keeps Unica healthy and levels up to level 11. With only Hortensia remaining, Diamant moves to the pillar tile adjacent to her and depletes his remaining vulnerary. Louis takes position south of Hortensia and uses a Pure Water just in case he's attacked with Elfire, and Chloe blocks off the rightmost gap, allowing Citrine to advance safely and make Diamant back her up. Unica makes her way to the right so she can eventually apply poison. Once again, Hortensia breaks Diamant and turn 8 begins. Unica poisons Hortensia, Citrine gets Diamant to attack on her behalf again, and Chloe throws a javelin and returns to her original position. Louis throws a javelin too, and finally Diamant breaks the revival stone. Jean moves and rewarps onto the leftmost emblem energy tile. Then I send Alir inside Hortensia's attack range, thinking he'd be able to take a hit if he's targeted. However, I completely forgot about the dragon effectiveness on Lewin, and he gets killed 3 times over. Thankfully it's not a forced game over if Alir dies with some charges left, and all I do is put him in Elfire range instead. Hortensia crits again, but this time on Diamant, who was able to hold out thanks to Roy, letting us enter turn 9. We have Unica apply a second stack of poison, Citrine attacks with fire, Chloe throws her javelin, Clan mounts the magic artillery and launches a long-range Elfire, and we end this first segment with a poke from Louis.
Oh, I lost. Why do I always lose? Well, I won't let you kill me.
For the rest of this turn, Diamant moves to the heal tile and Jean heals him. Then Alir, Alfred and Alchrist break down the door to start the second half of the map. Marth warns us of the Lady of the Plains engage attack that can snipe one of our units from an astonishing 10 tiles away. Then the Corrupted, including Morian, march towards us, and Pegasus Knight reinforcements appear from the stair tiles. Turn 10. Morian has high strength and uses the 2-range Axe Tomahawk, which is a step above the hand axe, so I start by having Diamant move off the heal tile and put Louis there instead with the javelin prepped. Alfred takes the rightmost emblem energy tile, Jean heals him, then everyone else gathers up without entering Morian's attack range so Louis does his tanking job. The rest of the Corrupted and Pegasus Knights advance again, and we get to turn 11. Clan launches an artillery shot on Morian. Diamant confronts his father by emblem engaging and striking with Blazing Lion, covering the entire choke point in flames. Alchrist shoots his father too, and Chloe tries to break the revival stone but misses. So I have Louis move to Diamant's right, have him defeat the corrupted in front, and he levels to level 12, which lets me put Unica on the heal tile to try and poison Morian, though Diamant's backup attack robs her of that chance. I move Alir up to seal the choke point, and I don't have him attack just in case Morian decides to throw a tomahawk at Alchrist. Alfred stays where he is, while Jean and Citrine stay out of Morian's range. The flames do their damage, then the weakened corrupted decides to axe first and Alir inevitably slays it. Thankfully, Morian doesn't target the defensively weaker Alchrist and strikes at Alir who's in his kill range, but Alir is able to evade. The rest of the enemies encroach even more, including Hyacinth who uses core doubles to summon forth stationary illusions, with the exact same stats as him, but only have a max HP of 1. They don't seem threatening, but they are able to back up Hyacinth's attacks, regardless of how far away they are from his target. The enemy ends their turn by sending the corrupted Chi Adepts to their death. Turn 12, we finally see the damage forecast for Astra Storm, and just like All for One in Chapter 7, this engaged attack is surprisingly non-lethal to everyone except Citrine and Chloe. But anyway, we've still got a Morian-shaped problem to worry about, so Clan uses the artillery again, and Diamant puts his father to rest.
Nothing short of victory.
Strong of body, strong of heart.
Everyone that can still move make their way up the stairs, with Citrine and Chloe staying out of Astra Storm's range. The mages move down first, then Alir and Louis get attacked by the Pegasus Knights. Hyacinth unleashes Astra Storm on Jean, piercing him 5 times over, but comes out of it alive into turn 13. Now that we've weathered the storm, I make it my goal to whittle down the nearby enemies whilst waltzing around Hyacinth's attack range, at the very least ensuring that Louis and Alfred don't enter his one-range attack area, as the Emblem's Manichati is anti-armor and anti-cavalry. Jean heals up Diamant, Alir crits the rightmost mage, Louis slays the Axe Pegasus Knight while Alchrist snipes the Sword one, and I have everyone else move up. Hyacinth attacks Alir, and in my stream, this was the point when I learned that the illusions can back up from anywhere, but even then, I was confident that Alir would survive. Until Hyacinth pulls a Goldberry and rolls the 6.6% chance that he would hit and crit his shot. Entering the 20th timeline, we defeat the same enemies. I have Alir move 1 tile right, since I'm sure Hyacinth would crit him again otherwise. Louis and Alchrist swap targets, leaving the right mage to Unica, and Emblem engaged Chloe, leveling Unica to level 10. The remaining mage decides to prioritize the wind's effectiveness on flyers and slices Chloe, leaving Louis to beautifully tank every single one of Hyacinth's attacks. Turn 14. It was at this point that I noticed not only is Hyacinth physically strong, but he's also tanky as heck too, with a whopping 19 defense and 21 resistance. Initially, I used the same walling strategy I did for Hortensia, burning a charge along the way, and eventually getting to a point where I've broken Hyacinth's revival stone, and is mostly blocked off by Diamant, Louis, Unica, and Alir. But he quickly shows me after that he can tear through Unica with ease with his martial arts, forcing me to travel back in time again, where I call for a full retreat to utilize the narrow staircase, losing another charge along the way because I accidentally left Louis open to a Manichati attack, which I correct by obstructing the entire hallway to let us breathe for a bit, eventually entering turn 15 with this awkward position. I take the opportunity to at least eliminate the mage and have Diamant rush in, Emblem engage, and launch Blazing Lion on the mage and Hyacinth, making it to level 13. Jean takes the time to heal himself and Louis, and he hits level 12, so Louis can put the mage down for good. Everyone else continues to keep their distance, except Alir, but Diamant is attacked instead, then Hyacinth gets healed. Turn 16. I pull everyone back again, thinking I have everyone aside from Louis and Diamant outside of Hyacinth's range. But as I pull Unica back, I noticed I accidentally put Alchrist in harm's way too, which leads to him getting attacked, and dodging the final shot, the Mad Lad, giving us the opening we needed to finally gang up on the old man. Absolute play of the game. And I'm so happy to announce that we are now in the final turn. Alir and Chloe start with a critical hit each. Citrine goads Diamant into breaking the Revival Stone and levels up to level 11. I finally have Unica apply poison, Louis uses Lodestar Rush, Clan uses Thunder, and then I let Diamant get revenge for his father.
I cannot accept this. Please, no more, no more!